morning. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2022 annual Sorghum and Millet Lab meeting. This is our 8th. It's hard to believe that. We're into our 9th year, and it should be an exciting week ahead of us. Dr. Tar, Dr. Bertram, Dr. Lapitan, colleagues from USAID in Washington and the missions, my SMIL colleagues from West Africa, Ethiopia, Haiti, Europe, and the United States are members of the External Advisory Board, Dean Minton and the Kansas State University community, and esteemed members of the broader agricultural development community. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you'll be able to connect with us throughout this week as we focus on our efforts to a successful finish to the SMIL program next year in 2023. This cropping season will present numerous opportunities to drive our programmatic objectives to new heights. We initiated this program in 2013 with lofty objectives developed through deep and profound co-creation processes in each of our target countries, with a goal to shift the frontier of hybrids and sorghum varieties to meet the challenges of climate change and the new economic realities of a rapidly developing food systems. We've developed over the past 8 years new opportunities with broad and inclusive appeal to all segments of our target populations by improving the biological resilience of crop production through novel agronomic and crop protection innovations. They are being used by thousands of low-income farmers in West Africa and Ethiopia. We've taken a defensive approach to crop resilience through increased host plant resistance against insects and diseases in several varieties, and these innovations are being used in all regions of the world and even in the United States. Our multi-purpose pearl millet varieties are being used by the Crop Improvement and Sustainable Intensification Innovation Labs in their outreach activities and producer marketing initiatives in Senegal. We've developed and are seeing the impact of exciting economic and nutritional resilience opportunities through new food products, consumer marketing studies, and seed system activities. All of this has been done through a transversal approach to reinforce linkages between stakeholders, science, and outreach along the sorghum and pearl millet value chains. Breeding alone could not do this, nor could crop improvement, or resource management interventions, or a singular focus on food products without backwards and forward linkages between all segments. The Sorghum and Millet Lab leads global efforts across the sorghum and millet value chains to promote this community of practice by humbly accepting that these are very, very complicated food systems, irrespective of whether you're in Ethiopia, West Africa, Haiti, or even the United States. International collaboration is a must, and this is why I'm very excited to inform the community that a second Sorghum in the 21st Century conference will be held next year in early June 2023 in Montpellier, France, and this is led by CIRAD and other organizations, including SMIL. This will be an exciting showcase for the program and a great follow-up to the 2018 conference that we held in Cape Town in association with the University of Pretoria. So this morning, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to focus right up front on the country level status of all of the efforts we've invested in research and development. And this will be a good segue to project discussions tomorrow. Nat Bascom will lead this discussion from Ethiopia, where he is meeting with our partners in Adama. For those of you that are only here for this morning, I encourage you to take notes and follow up with the team as you see opportunities for collaboration. We're using this morning to provide USAID with a concise synthesis of where our efforts have led along the product life cycle and the status of different stages of technological innovations achieved through US investments. I'm excited about these presentations, and I'm sure that they will generate lots of discussion and provide a great springboard into deeper analysis of progress, challenges, and opportunities for poverty reducing impact. But before we start, I'd like to invite Dr. Ernie Minton, the Dean of the College of Agriculture at Kansas State University, and also the Director of the Agricultural Experiment Station, to open our program And then we'll transition to Dr. Faith Bartz-Tarr, our Agreement Officer Representative, for an introduction as well. So Dr. Minton, I'll turn over the microphone to you.
Thank you very much, Tim. It's indeed a pleasure for me to greet this group on behalf of the Sorghum Millet Innovation Lab management entity, which is housed here at Kansas State University. We really value the contribution of this global group of scientists and other individuals who collectively work so hard to advance these important crops. We view these crops here in Kansas as really, an essential part of our future as a state of Kansas and contributing to the U.S. and regional economy, and crops adapting themselves to harsher climates, perhaps here in the United States. But the important thing is the way these crops we view can meet global challenges as well. And so the networks that these scientists with a common interest in sorghum and millet have come to effectively execute the objectives of the Sorghum and Millet Innovation Lab are just really, truly remarkable. And so this annual meeting is a celebration of those accomplishments, a critical evaluation of the challenges and opportunities that lie before us, and seeking really opportunities to, take the most far-reaching and advancing technologies and apply them to these two crops in particular. And I would say that as a land-grant university, the first operational land-grant university in the United States, this networking and engagement with stakeholders, and in this case, I'm referring to stakeholders in the global sense, is right at the heart of the United States land-grant university system and its ability to deliver answers that address really challenging problems for the world. And so we're going to continue to build on this rich history that this lab has, going back actually many, many years ago to the SMIL days. And now over the last decade as SMIL, the Sorghum Millet Innovation Lab, to continue contributing valuable information, valuable advances, and so on to the globe. And so with that, Tim, I'm going to first of all acknowledge and thank, as you've done, the organizers of this conference, this virtual conference, to also thank those here locally who have contributed from a K-State perspective, and to wish you all a very, very productive conference moving forward. I can be with you for a few minutes and I'm going to listen in until I have to log off. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to greet you all and give you wishes from Kansas State University. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Minton, for those opening comments and that welcome. Dr. Faith Bartz-Tarr will be our next welcome and introduction. Faith?
Thank you, Dr. Dalton and Dr. Minton, for your commitment to this program and for your insightful remarks that have set a stage for a productive and engaging meeting. Thanks also to everyone who is joining this review meeting to support us in reflecting on the year behind and planning our path forward together. The Feed the Future Innovation Lab for Collaborative Research on Sorghum and Millet, or SMIL, is a critical part of the U.S. government's Global Hunger and Food Security Initiative. Among 21 Feed the Future innovation labs that pair American ingenuity and expertise with some of the best and brightest minds across the globe. This unique network is supported by some 70 top colleges and universities, along with 370 partner country organizations, including research and educational institutions. These innovation labs are using cutting-edge science to research and develop effective technologies and innovations for scaling implementers to use, addressing current and future challenges posed by changing climate and the need to feed a growing global population with safe and nutritious food. Capacity development is an important common element among all innovation labs, which provide training to support the sustainability of these efforts while mentoring the next generation of scientists. In 2021, the Innovation Labs provided graduate degree training to 390 people, 45% of them female, from 29 countries. The Sorghum and Millet Innovation Lab is part of this impressive group addressing the root causes of poverty, hunger, and malnutrition, helping people feed themselves, and creating important opportunities for a new generation of young people while building a more stable world. And USAID is incredibly proud to partner with you. SMIL has seen inspiring results over the past year, all while adapting to the ongoing global pandemic, insecurity, and unrest. New disease-resistant and hybrid sorghum varieties were released in Ethiopia, supported by seed multiplication and farmer demonstrations, and new varieties for improved food products were tested. Seed ball technology and fortified flour blends were scaled up by entrepreneurs in Niger. The first sensory lab in West Africa was developed. New forage varieties advanced along the product life cycle to begin demonstration, and improved food quality varieties were tested for commercial use in Senegal. What's even more, genomics-enabled breeding has led to a greater resiliency against striga, heat, and drought stress. These achievements taken together are leading to big results, increasing the resiliency of small-scale producers in the face of climate change, making sorghum and pearl millet a critical part of more nutritious food systems that offer livelihood opportunities to women and youth, and forming collaborative links among US and international universities and research organizations that will support individual professional development while advancing science and learning through more effective innovation systems. I've been truly inspired by some of the stories that you've shared this year, including the feature on Dr. Fana Maina in the article celebrating the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, and the article that so artfully told the story of how we finally drew one gene closer to a sorghum Superman after decades of effort. That article caught the attention and admiration of USAID Administrator Samantha Power, which is no small compliment as she developed her illustrious career as a writer. And the article was shared by the director of USAID's Center for Agriculture-Led Growth as an example of effective storytelling for others to emulate. I found the superhero reference particularly refreshing and compelling, so I hope you don't mind me indulging in an expansion of the hero allegory, as I think it's particularly relevant to the experience of scientists and development practitioners like us. The hero's journey is a tale that has repeated through time and across cultures because it resonates with a common core element of humanity. The battle between good and evil plays out eternally in our communities and in our hearts, and we must all experience trials and tribulations on our paths to greatness. As scientists, above all else, we seek to bring the light of truth to illuminate the path to improve the human condition. And we do so through a rigorous, monotonous process of the scientific method, with appropriate controls and replication after replication. As we work to expand the horizons of human understanding, we may fail again and again. When we share our stories, we face the scrutiny and judgment of our peers. And as we work to apply knowledge and innovation to address the wicked development challenges of poverty and hunger, it can feel as though we're up against an adversary as powerful and eternal as evil itself. But the tales of the hero's journey offer us insight into some common elements of success. Encouragement that a commitment to sacrifice and service for the betterment of the world is a worthy endeavor, and triumph is possible for the courageous who persevere against seemingly insurmountable odds. A powerful lesson we can take from these stories is that heroes don't achieve greatness alone. The Black Panther had a capable family, a supportive community, and the mighty Avengers on his side. Wonder Woman could draw on the wisdom of her Amazonian heritage and rely on the help of the Justice League and the Super Friends. And Frodo the Hobbit had the solidarity of the Fellowship of the Ring, such that even when he faltered and failed, his committed companion Samwise the Brave picked him up and carried him through the terrors of Mordor. Just as these heroes drew strength from their communities, we at SMIL do not struggle alone. We are part of a powerful network of world experts committed to working together. USAID has identified critical problems that must be solved if humanity is to prosper. And we sent you on the quest because you are the best in your fields and you give us all hope. We know that you will answer the call if you work together. As Fana was so wisely quoted in the article that I still draw inspiration from, there will always be ups and downs and mistakes. Learn from them and you will succeed. Ask questions and seek help when needed. Set small goals to make the world a better place for everyone. No matter where you are living, you can make a huge difference. So, drawing from these stories of the heroes that came before us, I encourage you. Have faith in your own abilities and you will find strength to persevere. Trust your own truth and you will have the confidence to share your wisdom and insight with the world. Have humility and a spirit of sharing, and your legacy will carry on to achieve greatness for humanity even after your part of the story has ended. As we embark on this meeting, let us use this time together to share and learn and continue coordination of a cohesive program across sub-projects, disciplines, and geographies to add up to something that transcends all of these boundaries to achieve global impact and transform lives. And during this final year of SMIL, I call on you to draw motivation from the urgency, to emphasize capacity development and local leadership for sustainable impact, and put in place the supporting elements to enable continued professional development and innovation system improvements so the next generation of scientists are empowered to achieve results greater than we even thought possible. You are each a hero in your own right, and I'm honored to count myself among you. I look forward to learning from you over the next few days and throughout the journey of SMIL toward a more prosperous world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Faith. That was a wonderful introduction and highly motivational for everyone here. And I think it's a great segue as well, too. You set me up for introducing the next part of our program that's going to be led by Nat Bascom. And what we want to do is present the achievements of many of our mini superheroes that you didn't mention, but that are quite persuasive throughout our program. And so Nat will lead us through country level presentations. And so we will turn over the microphone to him to get us started on this first element of the program. And then it'll be an open discussion, first led by USAID and our external advisory board members on insight that they might have from these overview of the country level status and where we are along the technology pipeline in order that we can hone our efforts in the forthcoming year. So Nat, if you're ready, I'll turn over the microphone to you.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, we have you.
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, Nat. Loud and clear.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I would just like to first start off by taking this opportunity to thank the national teams and partners in their just resilience and commitment to the work. I know this last year here in Ethiopia and in West Africa have been difficult, and so we really appreciate just the commitment amidst the political unrest and just the COVID situation. So again, from the management entity, the External Advisory Board, USAID, we really appreciate all that you have done in this last year. In terms of a program, we kind of think of our sort of three pillars, one being building these global networks that span both in-country right down to end users and farmers and right up to some of the land grant institutions that were mentioned. As well, probably a second pillar is our commitment to strengthening human and institutional capacity development. And then thirdly is the technology development. Is that advancing?
No, we're just on your first country presentations.
Yeah, so I think in sort of giving kind of a quick overview before we get into the country engagements and country level presentations, one thing I've really appreciated is there's been a great, I think, engagement and co-creation process, which really has been key to driving the technology solutions. And that's been really that global network, but really with a reach right down to the community level in terms of end users and farmers. And that's been key to the program. In terms of funding, we've had about 60% of the research funds that were really directly contracted to the national partners. About 67% of the funds of the total funding has been allocated towards research projects themselves, just as a quick overview. In terms of our areas of inquiry, the breeding programs have represented about 64%. Then you can see the other breakdown in terms of how the overall budget has been allocated to the various areas of inquiry. And then I want to just focus here again on sort of the outputs in terms of technology delivery across this phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is how USAID frames kind of the technology pipeline delivery. And that is kind of matched with what is called the product life cycle, which has 10 different stages. And then we have kind of a movement from on the top from market research, breeding, that commercialization and actual delivery of that technology to the public and private sectors or pathways. And so I'm going to now look at the area of inquiry being kind of our breeding program across the entire program. So this is a snapshot. It doesn't capture everything, but it kind of gives you, I think, a visual of the actual movement and progression of our genomics-assisted breeding platforms that have been developed, the systems, the processes, the relationship that have then allowed for gene discovery and looking at forage quality and then a whole area of food product research in terms of discovery. And then if you look into phase 2 and 3 and 4, the orange icon is sorghum, the green is millet. But in the phase 2, these are the actual improved seed lines that are being finalized for movement into official registration in country, which will then move that some of those from phase 2 into phase 3, which will be made available for actual uptake and scaling. You can see in phase 3 that we have already some different hybrids as well as OPVs that are being made available and are in that scaling pathway as we speak. And then in phase 4, which is demonstrated uptake, there's been both new materials that have reached phase 4, as well as some materials that were there at the start of the program and were developed further, some of which will be replaced as they become mature and there's need for new material moving from phase 2 to 3 and to 4. In terms of how we've viewed sort of the seed system, as materials have moved into that phase 3 and 4, across the programs, there's been real delivery into the private seed system. We've had upfront engagement with private seed companies from the very onset of these research projects. There's been engagement from a participatory plant breeding aspect. There's been that first mile, last mile engagement with end users so that we're together as we move through the process from phase 1 and ultimately to phase 3 and 4. In the public seed system, there's both national and regional seed systems that we're moving improved seed into so that can move through the normal extension system to benefit multiple end users. And I think finally, we've really, had success in working again at that first mile, last mile, meaning that we've engaged with farmer association networks at the beginning who have been part of the engagement. And so that skills transfer and development of their skills to multiply and maintain these improved seeds is there. So those are kind of the 3 pathways that we're seeing to be very effective as this material moves out into the seed system. If we then look at our other area of inquiry being production systems, as those projects came on in phase 1, they were, technologies that already had proof of concept. And so really, they were almost really in a phase 3 or end of phase 2 level. And so the seed ball technology, the integrated pest management technology, those were able to be quickly scaled with farmer associations in Western Niger, in Senegal. And those engagements were really based on those large farmer studies at the very outset. So there was very much an organic multiplier in terms of working with thousands of farmers to deliver this technology in a wider area. And so I think part of what I would say in phase 3 we've seen is some of the actual work in terms of the delivery science and what are some of the key factors that allow that to multiply and to scale more quickly in terms of the seed ball and IPM technology. And then lastly, across the food product technologies, there's been, again, a real commitment in the discovery under phase 1 in terms of protein and starch availability, digestibility, milling properties, all that to build towards a phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So I'll just mention that the green icon are what I would call food products that are defined, been researched, and the orange are actual food packaged products that you can find in the marketplace, in the grocery stores of some of these different countries. So we've had a great, success in moving food products towards these phase 3 and phase 4 with demonstrated uptake. And then lastly, the purple icon, just wanted to point out, under phase 3, we've supported ITA in the development of a food product evaluation and sensory laboratory, one of the first in West Africa, and that is a great capacity that is there and available to do upfront food product evaluation. And then the hub and spoke, I think, is worth mentioning, just the network that's been formed particularly in Niger to allow women entrepreneurs to get training in processing, marketing, and really being backstopped by the INRAN technical team to be able to allow them to develop product and sell that at both a rural and urban environment. Well, that's my quick overview of some of the technology delivery. And then we wanted to move on now to some 20-minute presentations by each country. And so I'll be handing over to Alamu, and then we'll work through Ethiopia, Niger, Senegal. Then we'll have time for kind of USAID reactions and recommendations. And then we'll have a Q&A session as that finishes. So thank you, and I'll hand over to Alamu here. Perfect.
So, thank you, Nat. My name is Alamu. I'll give you a brief on Ethiopia's SMIL project updates. So my outline, I'll give a brief on summary of project activities and the sorghum production in Ethiopia, and the technology developed and promoted through this and other projects as well, and our partnerships, strategic partnership to accelerate those technologies. And finally, I'll discuss a little bit on strategies and opportunities to support sorghum and the millet value chain in our country. It's just to give a brief on sorghum in Ethiopia. I think most of you might have know about this, but sorghum is an important staple food and feed crop in Ethiopia, and in crop livestock cropping system. And it has been a third important crop next to teff and the maize, but recently, with a special intervention from the government, wheat is taking the run from the sorghum in area coverage. And there are about nearly 5 million smallholder farmers who depend on entirely on sorghum for food and feed. There's about, if we see the national yield is about 2.6 ton per hectare, which is low by when we consider the crop potential, and it's only about 30% of the total sorghum production, which is marketed, and only 7% processed. The rest, about 80%, is used for home consumption in Ethiopia. So we can see that there is an opportunity to invest in this area to improve this area. So there is an increasing trend in production and productivity over the last decades. And in last year, due to the locust and the conflict, the productivity declined due to probably those locusts in the conflict.
The slides doesn't look like moving, Nat, Alex. I'm not sure if others looking. It's still on the first slide from my computer.
Is that the case for others?
It's the same for me.
Yes.
Yes.
You want to stop sharing this? Try again. Reboot it.
Livestock cropping system in Ethiopia, and it has been the third important crop over the last decades. But now wheat is taking the run because of the special intervention from the government to substitute the import imported wheat. So the other thing is want to emphasize is that still we need to work on to improve the sorghum productivity, and out of the production, only 30% of grain is marketed. So, and 7% of it is processed. So the rest is basically used for home consumption. So I think this is an area we want to focus to improve the sorghum value chain and improve the sorghum seed system in Ethiopia. So next, please. And there is an increasing trend in production and productivity, but last year, due to the locust invasion across the Eastern Africa, it affects significantly the sorghum productivity in the country. So next slide, please. So in a small in SMIL project, we collaborate from the US two universities, Purdue and Texas A&M. The PS will discuss the details, but we do have about 12 activities and 3 different. The first one basically focus on this aspect, which is a major problem in the intermediate altitude, whereas the others 2 basically focus on the trial land to develop striga and drought-tolerant hybrids, as well as high functionality protein quality sorghum. In collaboration with a local university from Hawassa University, my teams are here, and the Texas A&M with Professor Joseph. Next. So regarding the outputs from research, so far we've managed to release 2 varieties, one OPVs and hybrids, and recently last year we've managed to release 1 for sorghum varieties. This is basically in phase 3 and 4. These varieties are registered and are being scaled up in the country. And since we start this project, we have core collections from the SMIL core collections, and these core collections are being still evaluated for important agronomic traits in target environments, particularly for intermediate anthracnose. We work with Professor Tesfaye Prout and striga with Professor Kabisa from Purdue. So we also still working on high digestibility in waxy sorghum with Joseph from Texas A&M, and currently we have 2 promising dual and broad hybrids identified, which we hopefully register in the coming years. Next, please. So coming to technology promotion of already released hybrid technologies. We do have released 2 hybrid varieties. White, the one you see in the right is the white drought tolerant hybrid sorghum released in collaboration with Professor Gebisa from Purdue, and the red one. So these 2 sorghum varieties have a different purpose, particularly the red one, and drought tolerance, and used specially of interest for areas in dry lowland with related with the Somali region. So this technology starting in phase 3 and 4 in major sorghum growing areas. Next, please. So if you see, this is just to give an opportunity for the farmers to have 2 different options for the farmers. The one you see on the top is white, and the one in the red is on the same plot of land, which will give for the farmer to choose from the two hybrids. Next, please. So another open pollinated varieties, which is this we demonstrated is the Marara variety. This one is basically for adapted to the intermediate high potential areas in the western part of the country. And this is developed through from the SMIL core collection as well. And we have got a chance to attend this demonstration along with partners in western part. Another one you see in Jera, you know, in Ethiopia, teff is primarily used for injera. Next to teff is the sorghum. So for injera making, and it's an important component. So this, the one you're looking is basically mixed from teff and sorghum. Next, please. So first one, please. Yeah. So our strategic partnership to accelerate these technologies is our public and private seeding sectors who started to involve in hybrid sorghum production. So recently we've engaged both public and the private sector. The public sector, basically, we do have two strong regional seed enterprise who started to produce hybrid sorghum. As you know, it's new for our country, and we give skills for the seed enterprise, and we work closely with the public sector, and as they started to produce hybrids. The other one is basically a private sector, which we engage in hybrid production, the API and another one is a farmers cooperative, which we were working on the to produce and seed. And other strategic partner is funding from the Bill and the Melinda Gates Foundation and the idea from the Canada to support all the technologies, develop and promote to for the target. Next, please. Some of the strategies and opportunities to support the value chain in sorghum in Ethiopia. Some of this support from SMIL and USAID are aligned to our vision of the national sorghum strategy we've developed a few years ago. So that is basically to generate demand-led sorghum technologies that contribute to improve livelihoods and the system development in the country. So that is one of the opportunities. Another opportunity is to diversify utilization of and expand sorghum in the market for different use, like for malt and feed as well for sorghum use. So this is another one is recently there is a demand to commercialize for sorghum in the country as a sorghum as export. So some investors are requesting the government to export sorghum to other countries. So these are the opportunities that can support the value chains in sorghum in Ethiopia. Next, please. So another opportunity is to have basically most of the cropping system, sorghum growing areas are monocropping. So particularly in the dry lowland areas, we have a bimodal bimodal rainfall type. So this bimodal, the shorter rain you see from April to June, that can feed into the legume mungabin, which can be harvested in 2 months, and then so they can plant the early maturing sorghum varieties. This is a very good opportunity to fit into this technology. So this is another opportunity to support the value chain. Mungabin is a cash crop as well, and also helps to the farmers to have an opportunity for diverse food in the feed as well. Thanks. Another one is additional support to the program from the GATE Foundation and the government as well. We have already, through other projects, developed a well-defined product profile. So the one I said in the previous one is a demand-led sorghum technologies that helps to address our customers and the end users. And as well as this is the area where we didn't focus in a previous phase of the project, but finger millet is an important crop as well in particularly in marginal areas for marketing and funds. So I think it's a good opportunity to scale up this technology. So next, please. So I think this is some of the challenges we faced over the last years to monitor and work closely with our partners. So COVID, as you know, restrict our travels, and recent conflicts are give us really tough time to implement the program activity. Apologies for the inconvenience. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Almu. We will then move on to a presentation by Mustafa, the country coordinator in Niger. And then we will finish with a presentation by the team in Senegal. And then we'll move into reactions and question and answer time. So Mustafa, do you want to share your screen from there? Or would you like Ben to?
And you're still muted, Mustafa.
I have it ready if it's helpful.
Can you unmute? I think you're still muted, Mustafa. There you go.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
What? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Nat. So can you show the slide, or do you want me to share?
Up to you. Ben can share if you'd like, or you can share from your side.
Okay.
Whichever you'd like.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Great.
I'm not sharing it. Is okay?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. So in Niger, we are going to talk about the available technology that are ready for scaling for phase 3 and 2 from the respective project. So this is the project on Southern sorghum breeding. So we have some striga drought-tolerant varieties that are going to be soon homologated, and also some field demonstration are planned by the team in collaboration with the farmer group Pumagaskia and Moriban. And then they will proceed to the scaling of those varieties with some of the local companies producing seed. And we also want to mention that there are some partnership in terms of support, sharing of funding and synergy to accelerate the scaling. So you have ABI project that is actively involved in the adoption of those upcoming lines. And we also have from the threat deployment pipeline, a sorghum project for food and feed, some of the varieties that are going to also be soon homologated. And they are also working in collaboration with the farmer groups, and they are partnering with some of the seed company like Alheri Seed, which is an active partner of the research institution in Niger. And you also have, in terms of support in sharing funding to participate to that adoption, 2 new projects funded by Norway, which is CESAT and Red Sack, which are all being executed by INRAN. So we think there will be some synergy to go and accelerate that scaling of those lines in the coming season. So then we have also the SMIL project, which most of the activities are also located in Maradi. They share some of their activities with some of the partners like ICRISAT in terms of scaling of those varieties, and they have started to do some training of the farmers in terms of demonstration, and they are also working with some of the private seed company, and they have also partners in terms of accelerating the adoption. So they are collaborating with ABI and ICRISAT, and they were having a lot of activities also with some of the private seed company. And they plan most of their evaluation this year for the seed that are expected to be homologated, though some are already done by ICRISAT through their collaboration. Then we also have the Seedboard technology project, which is really doing a lot of good work in terms of using local materials to help to improve and the production, the productivity of millet. Now they have also started to test it on sorghum, and they are doing a lot of evaluation with the farmer organization. And we think with all this resilience we are facing in our communities in terms of shock, stress, and also increase of cost of fertilizer, those are going to be local solutions that will help farmers to improve the production of sorghum and millet and also other crops in the coming years. Then we also think that in terms of food processing, we have a lot of technology that are ready to go for scaling. Some are already being sold by the local processors, and most include instant products like fura and couscous. You have also millet juice and co-extruded fortified products that are already been tested and sold, and we think they have a lot of potential because they are going to help to increase the production of those products in urban cities, and also can be used in some of those communities that are having a lot of stress and shock with this drought and also security situation. So those communities moving from location to location may highly use those products that are ready to cook in their local communities. We also have some of the products that are branded millet-based products and sorghum, well packed and sold
by our urban processors who were incubated through the Food Innovation Hub, supported by SMIL, and also other projects like MacKnight, with whom we are partnering, and INRAN. So it is really a good opportunity and platform for the women to come and express and discover improved varieties, diversify uses of sorghum and millet grain, and get more innovation in terms of collaboration and also co-creation. And the dynamic is going well in urban area of Niamey. So you have some of the processors that we got their product present. And then in rural location, we also have the same dynamic through the food innovation centers. So most of the products made now in urban cities are being processed by local women group in their location, and they are making a lot of sales and also help in terms of improving malnutrition and also empowering the woman. So they are really becoming centers of solution for the local communities in terms of diversification and also adding value to sorghum and millet crops. And this dynamic is through the hub and spoke system, where we have primary centers, secondary centers, and now we are even starting to have tertiary centers. So there will be more details on those when the processing project will present. And they are taking a lot of solution in terms of improving malnutrition and also reinforcing the resilience of our local communities. So in terms of need for potential opportunities, we think for this sorghum and millet crops, the way to really explore is to also align with the government strategy and vision for agriculture. And most of those varieties and the dynamic fall into that, because now the government is even always talking about modernizing the rural communities and also take all the solution from our local crops, make sure that we use most of our crops and also ideas to sustain and also support our community in terms of resilience and also improving their well-being, increasing the market access for sorghum and millet crop. And I think the SMIL project and also the other partner projects are working toward the vision of the government. So we have a lot of support in terms of improving seed, and also there are a lot of banks that are ready to support and sustain those initiatives. And also the other organization in terms of funding like USAID and the MCC, and even the local farmers and the private sector are part of that solution in terms of reinforcing the way of really enhancing the dynamic and improving that situation in our local communities. So we also have through the year some work in terms of seed registration. So we held a meeting with the seed committee and also the legislation group to get more advice and more understanding of the steps our breeders and other scientists can follow to make sure that the seeds that are potentially available and that may be go for adoption get registered before the end of the project. So we have interaction with them, and we think it is going to help our scientists to like speed up the process and get those seeds homologated and go on farm so that they can be used. Then in terms of technology show, we also have
quite number of interaction and exhibition. Like we recently held the International Festival of Millet, which was co-hosted by ICRISAT, INRAN, and the Ministry of Agriculture and other local development projects, where all the technologies in terms of production, agronomy, crop protection, value addition, and market access were exhibited, and most of the stakeholders and actors attended the event. And SMIL technologies were highly appreciated by the people. You can see here, this is the Ministry of Agriculture and the representative of the wife of the president visiting the stand of SMIL at that event. And we have quite number of people from the town and villages that attended, the farmers, the women processors. Those are women from our local hub. And you have also urban products, like the extruded products that were exposed, and the Seedboard technology, the improved varieties that are available for scaling up. And they were very, very impressed by the output and think that there is potential to scale up those technologies. Then we also had a high-level panel discussion where you have the first one on the production in the context of the resilience and the climate change. There were a lot of discussion and ideas that were shared among the participants, and how those solutions can be used. And we can see that the SMIL technologies can highly participated to sustain that production in this climatic change. And then we also had a second panel on market access and how we can expand market for sorghum, for millet food in our location, and also beyond Niger, the sub-region. And from what we are seeing in terms of technology generation and potential, those projects and also the scientists can contribute to improve this dynamic. We also have some multi-actors meeting where we meet and talk with the farmer groups. The major partners are Moriban, Fumagaskia, and then Inran Ikrizat, and also the universities like University of Maradi, SMIL, McKnight, ABI, PIA, and also SIRAD were there, and a lot of potential of how adoption can be planned and partners can work together to really accelerate scaling up of available technology are expressed. So those are the few slides, and I think there will be more details on those in the coming days from the respective project teams. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. Thank you to you and to the team there. And you can stop sharing that screen. We will then get ready for.
The team is there. You have many people.
Gito and team. Thanks, Mustafa. Can you stop sharing?
I will introduce
Yes.
Dr. Nani, who will present the country presentation from Senegal. I would like first to thank you all, starting with the SMIL entity team and the coordination. We are very pleased working with you because you have your continuous support. We would also like to thank USAID in Washington, and also Faith, and also the mission in Dakar. They are always supporting us when we do our meetings, and also asking for information regarding the progress we are making in our activities. So thank you very much, and also encouraging us in finding some synergies with other innovation labs. We thanks also as innovation labs who contribute in generating the technologies and products that we're going to present to you today. Those technologies are in phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. You will see why, because some innovation technologies started to be generating before the second phase of SMIL, but SMIL does support the progress of those product transfer. So thank you very much. And those products also address global challenges. I will not enter in depth on the challenges that we are addressing, but by the presentation, you will find that we address adaptation to climate change, socioeconomics dynamics, and also market and resilience also. We address also cross-cutting team. We unfortunately don't have probably the time to address all the cross-cutting team in this presentation, but in our reports, you can find also more details regarding the activities that we are doing on cross-cutting team. In terms of expertise that we are receiving also from the area of inquiry, we are very pleased because this helps us advance our breeding program pipelines in Senegal and also in Niger. We do train also some students, but also we go beyond the training of students and scientists. Can you hear me? We train also farmers organizations, those who are using those technologies, also very important. We have also established a strategy for technology transfer to go beyond just developmental of innovation. We are working about the sustainable seed systems, how we can transfer our technology and do the scaling up, and most important, how we can have a feedback from people who are using those technologies. So without any further, yes.
Gito, are you advancing slides right now? We're not seeing anything advance.
No, I'm not advancing. I'm just making an introduction. I'm done. I'm giving. I'm giving Dr. Nani, who gonna give the presentation of the slides. I was just thanking everybody and be proud to be of practice. So very much. But Dr. Nani, you go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gito, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. I hope the sound is clear. Okay, so
yes.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to give this presentation on behalf of the National Coordinator, Dr. Ndidou Kane, and the entire team in Senegal. So just as a reminder, the Regional Center of Excellence for Dry Cereals is composed of 5 centers. SERAS, which is specialized in research on the drought adaptation. BAM, which is specialized in macroeconomic studies. CNRA, specialized in agricultural research on cereals and legumes. And ITA, which is the Food Technology Institute. And ENSA is the higher education school, which delivers degrees to agricultural engineers. So the first 3 centers are part of the Senegalese Institute for Agricultural Research. And the Center of Excellence does demand-led research and education, following a value chain approach, meaning from farm to fork. And its mandate is Western Central Africa and restricted to dry cereals and associated crops, meaning namely millet, sorghum, sesame, fonio, peanut, and cowpea. And the Center of Excellence is endorsed by CORAF and ECOWAS to really deliver the technologies at the regional scale. There are 5 projects that are implemented, 5 SMIL projects that are implemented in Senegal. You have GenMil, SMIL Digest, Gen, SMIL Plateau, and SMIL Nutri. These are the short names, so you'll have the full name following the short one. And there is one PI for GenMil, which is Dr. Ndidou Kane, and the others are co-PI from SERAS, from CNRA, and ITA. So through these projects, there are several technologies that are developed. In the first box, you have all the pre-breeding technologies, the traits, the tools, like the root model, the phenotyping, the drone phenotyping pipeline. You have markers that are associated to key traits like disease resistance, digestibility, drought, and you have breeding populations and mapping populations that are developed. So you will hear more about these technologies in the project presentations. And these tools and technologies are used to develop improved varieties that are high yielding, nutritious, well adapted to the environment. And they are also included in a package, in a technology package, which have affordable and labor saving management options. Some of these varieties are also converted into food and feed products. And this is done together with, well, at least the food products are done together with the ITA, whereby they check through sensory tests the palatability, the acceptability in terms of color, taste, and aroma. And they also ensure that there is high organoleptic quality and nutritional value. Besides, they also check the shelf life and also the packaging. This is more on the market side, and the first box is more on the research and training, though you also have research in food science and technology. So the rest of my presentation will focus more on the products in phase 3 and 4. As mentioned earlier by Dr. Ndido, there are products in phase 1 and 2, but because we are towards the end of SMIL, you will hear more about those ones in the project presentation. And in this one, in the country update, I will focus on phase 3 and 4. So for phase 3, we have different product lines for sorghum. You have the tannin-free sorghum that are resistant to grain mold, and there are 5 advanced lines that are coming from the NAM population. And these lines have been already selected based on the agronomic based on the agronomic performances and also farmers' preferences for participatory varietal trials. And because the focus is on the grain mold, these lines that have been selected have a score of 2, which means about 1 to 10% grain molded. And they can be used for grain and fodder production, and the potential users are seed dealers, producers, food processors, consumers, and also livestock farmers. The second product line is the highly digestible sorghum grain proteins. For that one also, there are 5 advanced lines that have been selected, same based on the agronomic performances, farmers' preferences. And these lines, some of these lines can have up to 26% more digestible proteins compared to the local check. And they can also be used for grain and fodder. And this product line is mainly targeting the food processors and agri-industry for baking and also for poultry and livestock feed. The product line for pale millet, that one is the high yielding late maturing OPV. It's the variety called Salam. It's not yet released, but it is in the process. The grain yield potential of this variety is 2.5 to 3 tons per hectare, and the cycle duration is 120 days. And the main use is to produce grain. For food technology, we have the lactobacillus strain culture, which has been identified and characterized by ITA, and it will be used for fermentation to make to fasten the cooking time of the millet. So the target is the target users are the food processors, the SMEs, and the agri-industry. For sorghum, for each of the 2 product lines, the best 3 lines will be selected based on the cooking qualities and the consumers' preferences this year. And they will be proposed for release by the end of 2022. That way we combine the agronomic performances, farmers' preferences, but also cooking qualities and consumers' preferences to tackle the whole value chain. For the products that are in phase 4, we have sorghum varieties that have been released before the SMIL phase 2, but SMIL phase 2 will really fast track the scaling. So these are dual purpose high yielding varieties. The first 2, Payan and Golobe, are short duration varieties. Auru and Daru are medium duration. Ganda and Ginte are long duration varieties. So depending on the length of the cycle duration, they will be better adapted to different regions of the country. So they will be used for grain and fodder as well. For pre-millet, we have three product lines. The first one is the high-yielding, medium-duration, open pollinated varieties. So SL423, SL169, SL2 2018, and Chalat 2. So the first three varieties are dual-purpose varieties with a grain yield potential of 2.5 ton per hectare, and Chalat 2 has a yield potential of 3 ton per hectare. The cycle duration is between 90 to 105 days after sowing. And the dual purpose varieties can produce up to 50% more fodder than the local Czech Suna 3. The second product line is the high yielding, early maturing open pollinated varieties with GA1, GB8735, and Chakti. Grain yield potential 2 ton per hectare, cycle duration 65 to 85 days. And Chakti has the particular feature of having very high, up to 38% more iron than the local Czech. The last product line for pre-millet is the early maturing, high yielding hybrid, which is the first pre-millet hybrid developed by ISRA. Its name is Tau. It has been released with a grain yield potential of 3 to 4 ton per hectare and a cycle duration of 70 to 80 days. So the main use for this, the last two product lines are for grain production. We also have some food technologies, including bread and pasta made with local cereal grains. And in some cases, we have up to 30% integration of the cereal grain in the wheat base. And we also have the enhances process of rolled flour to make the traditional rolled flours like arau, dege, those are the local names. And there is also the malt flour for various preparation. And the advantage of this one is to have a very fast cooking time compared to non-fermented products. And there are also instant flours that are fortified with iron, zinc, and vitamin A. So the potential users for the food technologies are food processors, consumers, SMEs, and agri-industry. The approaches we use for variety and seed scaling include mainly two approaches. The first one is the open field days, where we showcase the new varieties. And last year we did that through the Irish Technology Park, where sorghum and millet varieties have been presented to the value chain actors. There are also some projects which did open field days, like the PEAR project funded by USAID. There are on-farm demonstrations in farmers' fields, whereby they invite the neighboring farmers to visit the field and make their appreciations. The breeding programs also benefit from contractual farming. So we are not the one doing the contractual farming directly, but large processing companies like Mamet Jabot and La Vivrière enter into agreement with producers to buy their production ahead of the campaign. And because those producers use our varieties, it's also a way to scale the new varieties. In addition to the demonstration, we also try to do the decentralized seed production, because the formal system cannot absorb the demand. And we try to make sure that at least there are sufficient quantity and quality of seed in the local, on site, let's say. So to do that, we build on a large network of farm organizations that are already involved in the participatory evaluation of our varieties and seed production. And the first step, that is the breeder seed production, is done on station by the responsible breeders and the dedicated unit with the SEM, which is based in Bombay. And then the breeder seeds are distributed to selected lead farmers in the different locations that we are targeting. So they will produce the foundation seeds, and the breeders and qualified government agents come and they train them on agronomic practices to produce good quality seed, and they also do the quality control. The second stage of producing the certified seeds is also done by the on-farm by the selected lead producers, and the certification is done by qualified agents. So by decentralizing the seed production, we make sure that farmers get the right amount of seeds they need, the right quality, without this being a burden on the breeding programs. For food products scaling, we follow 4 different approaches. The first one is to transfer directly the technologies to processing companies. For example, ITA has transferred fast cooking arrow to 2 companies, the Free Work Services and La Vivrière. Mamel Jabot is also showing high interest in tannin-free and high nutrition value sorghum, and hopefully by this year, this will be materialized in some agreements with Mamel Jabot. And following the distribution in Kaolack of the fortified instant flours, the malnutrition control unit is actually currently making large orders. Now the challenge here is to make sure that the production is keeping up with the demand. And that's one of the challenges we have to address through this project and others. The second approach is incubating youth and women-led processing businesses, and this is done as part in the framework of an AFDB project that is led by ITA. In this incubator, technology and knowledge is transferred to agribusiness owners and startups, and there will be a dedicated building for this incubator, which will be completed this year. But already there are activities ongoing, and the cereal-based food products that are developed by ITA are being promoted through these channels. So the youth and women are trained in developing the products, but also in basic book accounting and also business development, including packaging. The third approach we use for the food products is through the school canteen programs. This one, we are involved in this one through the Women Processors Association, with which we work, and this association is one of the contractant of the school canteen program led by the World Food Program. And because they purchase directly the peel millet grains from the producers who use our product, our varieties, it's also a way to scale the products. And actually they are making very, very large orders, especially through the PMP for pea millet. We are also involved in making trendy and innovative pea millet sorghum-based recipes to also kind of create new demand for food products. So together with the same association, the president, Mrs. Sidibe, is involved in making new recipes whereby they substitute rice in our usual Senegalese recipe with pea millet and sorghum. And several women have been trained, including Sarah's canteen staff. So every Thursday, we sometimes enjoy the local, the bites made with peel millet, sorghum, and other products. So they also try to make, let's say, more modern bites that will be more child-friendly, like the mini pizza made with millet and sorghum cupcakes. And the next step for these recipes will be to kind of commercialize it and bring in agri-industry to take up and standardize the production of these bites. For animal feed product scaling and approaches, we work in collaboration with ISRA CRZ. It's a center specialized in livestock research, and also ENSA through the Sustainable Intensification Lab, whereby they study sorghum as a substitute to maize and poultry feeds, and also see how they can produce quality fodder from dual-purpose pea millet and sorghum varieties for cattle feed. Discussion is also ongoing with the private sector through the large companies NMR and Sedima, which they are the one producing and also distributing poultry and other cattle feeds. And also we have been approached by livestock farmers, especially last year. I think Dr. Basirusin was very happy to sell for the first time the sorghum straws that have been produced there. So there is already interest for this, for the quality fodder that is produced with the dual purpose varieties. For this kind of products, there is still a need to establish, or let's say prove the beneficial effect of these products on livestock, and also to come up with commercial products that can be scaled by animal feed industry. So this is still work ongoing work. The other synergies that have been leveraged, in addition to the ones I have already mentioned, are through the ILSI, SIWA, and CASI projects, where they are involved in the crop improvement, gender, youth, nutrition, and also seed system strengthening. The Sustainable Intensification Lab whereby they have intensification options that have been already designed for dual-purpose PM millet varieties, and they are at the validation stage. The Food Product Innovation Lab, which is involved with ITA. USAID pair project for variety scaling, DCRABI whereby they use modern and demand-led breeding approaches to really fast-track the development of breeding lines and varieties. The EPCA also, where they do the digitalized breeding program, and AFDB TAD with the technology scaling. So last year there was the technology fair in Dakar, where some of the sorghum varieties and sorghum products have been showcased. So in terms of, let's say, a future strategy, we are considering to do some scaling and monitoring through the digital platforms that exist in Senegal. There are mainly 3 that we are targeting. Jokalante is a call center, which is mainly focused on information sharing and access to rural areas. So they have up to 80,000 contacts with whom they share the information, especially weather information. And we want to work with them to see how they can adapt their program to technology information to raise awareness about the varieties and products that are available. Luma is also doing more or less the same, but in addition, they have a marketplace with about 297,000 users. And ANCAR is the extension agency, and they have collaborated with FAO to develop an application that is named SAIDA, where they do agricultural advisory services. In their pilot phase, they have up to 85,000 farmers through 300 villages, and they are already keen to work with ISRA and ITA to showcase some of the technologies on the application. There is also discussion ongoing to have a business opportunity fair. This was discussed when Nathalie Bascam visited Senegal last February, and when we were doing the debriefing with the USAID mission in Senegal. So we see this as a good opportunity to raise awareness about the varieties, the food products, and all the technologies, but also to showcase products that can be picked up by the SME and large companies. This way, we will enhance our demand pool of the production and also help grow markets for farmers and producers. Because unless these products that we are developing are commercialized, there will not be incentive to produce more. So further support may be needed to keep providing relevant and innovative technologies in the face of climate change, food and nutrition insecurity. This is more like ahead of, let's say, forward thinking for the next phase of SMIL probably. So we will have to develop to enhance our capacities for disease screening, market discovery and use, and also for food science and technology. Train our technicians on new breeding schemes, advanced experimental methods, and also train women and youth entrepreneurs on technology use and business development. So this is already happening, but we will have to strengthen it. We will also have to further disseminate peel millet and sorghum varieties and the derived product through enhanced seed multiplication of preferred varieties in order to do wider dissemination, but also to be able to respond to demand. And we also would like to strengthen our linkages with the food processors and agri-industry. The third point is to really create demand, because as I was saying, if there is no demand, there will be no incentive to produce more. So if peel millet and sorghum consumption become trendy and hype again, probably there will be more demand and farmers will be more willing to produce. And for that, in addition to funding for supply, we need funding for demand to conduct powerful marketing, promotion, and delivery at scale, and continue developing tasty and affordable recipes with attractive packaging so that the market can be interested. And if there are well-paid jobs along the value chain, this will be also incentives to embark in peel millet and sorghum value chains. The last point I would like to make is to also, in addition to all this wonderful work, we have to know what is the adoption level and what is the impact we are generating through the use of the SMIL products. So this will serve to build evidence to support advocacy and also to guide policy, but also to have a better understanding of value chain actors' limitation in accessing new technologies, knowing what is available, their costs, and where to find them. So this is all what I have for our country presentation. We would like to appreciate the the financial contribution of the Feed the Future through the USAID, and also thank all the partners and collaborators that have helped this work to happen. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Njido and Nani. I think that completes our 3-country overview. Thank you very, very much. We're going to then kind of turn now, I'll kind of hand back to Tim, and we'll kind of lead into then some maybe some remarks or presentations by USAID, and then we'll move into hopefully a good exchange in terms of kind of a Q&A time. So back over to you, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Thank you, Dr. Drame. Thank you, Dr. Mustafa. Thank you, Dr. Tufesa. Those are great overviews of the breadth and depth of the activities that are taking place in each of your countries. Incredibly informative, and I just can't wait for the rest of the week to get into details. So what we have on the agenda is about 45 minutes or so. I guess we're running a little bit late, not bad, about an hour for discussion on what has been presented today. And I wanted to start by giving USAID the microphone in order to get some feedback from them about where we are, what can be emphasized, or what are additional opportunities that the entire team cannot, that may not be aware of. So I have on the agenda Dr. Tar to start, and then Dr. Lapitan and Dr. Bertram. If you'd like to flip it up amongst yourself, you're welcome to. But first up, Dr. Tar, unless you want to hand it to someone else.
Thank you. I think since I've already spoken, I would like to cede the floor to my colleague, Dr. Bertram, if he's ready to deliver some remarks now. And I can just kind of summarize after Dr. Bertram and Dr. Lapitan have had a chance.
Thanks, Faith. I think Nora was planning to go first, so if I'm not mistaken, so I'm going to defer to Nora. We'll get it right, Tim.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and thanks, Faith. So first of all, greetings to everyone, wherever you are joining us today. And I would like to say that I'm really delighted to be able to participate in today's meeting and to meet members of the team, including some members of your advisory board. I also see some guests here like Kevin Pixley. So it's really great to see the great attendance. And so thanks, Tim, Nat, and Ben for the invitation to give remarks. So I'm going to divide my talk into 3 parts. So first of all, Tim requested us to talk about, to provide feedback on the country presentations, the presentations we just heard. And I would also like to take a few minutes to tell you about the new, the priorities of the new Global Food Security Research Strategy, which we are currently drafting, and we are going to launch sometime in April or May. And finally, I'd like to share our thinking about future opportunities for research in sorghum and millet. I have 4 slides, and I will present them when the time comes. So on the feedback, first of all, I want to say I really enjoyed the presentations from Alimu, Mustafa, Njido, and Nani. They were very, very impressive. And I'm going to divide my feedback into what I heard about the technology transfer and partnerships, as well as constraints. So Tim asked us to provide some insights on how the project could reorient or adjust to achieve greater impact in the last year. So first of all, I want to say that I am so thrilled to see that your team has already adopted the product life cycle framework that we are just we have begun to implement in order to promote scaling and adoption of innovations from our research investments. And I have to say, your project is very forward thinking. And that is truly one of the strengths of your project. So I was so impressed with all the different technologies that you described here, open pollinated varieties, as well as hybrid sorghum. Those are great, and all focus on demand-led technologies. And then I heard technologies on striga resistance, the seed ball, dual purpose sorghum, and your focus on traits for food processing and food quality. So I would like to really congratulate you, because I know what we've heard is just a few examples of the technologies that have been developed by this team. And one of the strengths that I also heard, in my mind, I've been jotting down a lot of things that really struck me as very impressive. So you have also started the integration of improved crop varieties with production systems, something that we're really putting a greater emphasis on for our crop improvement innovation labs to not only focus on the improved crop varieties, but to think of the entire system, which you have done in all of your examples, thinking of the entire value chain. The other piece where you have really excelled is in your collaboration. So as you know, the administrator of USAID has emphasized locally led development. It's a top priority and one that we are going to focus on as we move forward with all of our research activities. And SMIL has promoted and demonstrated your commitment to locally led research and development just by the very fact that this meeting started with presentations from your country partners is very refreshing, and they were truly impressive presentations. So I would say that what this team has done is truly something to hold up as a standard for all of our innovation labs. I also like the fact that you have really put a strong emphasis in considering the needs of women and youth. So that said, where are the areas to adjust or reorient to achieve greater impact? And some of the things that I heard, especially Alimu pointed this out, is the need to improve seed systems for sorghum and millet. This is really a challenge that will need extensive partnerships with national partners, with the private sector, which you're already doing, and the CGIAR, who also developed an initiative to address bottlenecks in seed systems. And then I also heard a need for support for expanding markets and developing business models. At least this is something that Tim has mentioned in a presentation that he gave before. So what I would suggest are two things. First of all, take advantage of your strengths. You are very collaborative, you're forward thinking, you have already started thinking about demand-led approaches. And I would also say you're very resourceful because of all the partnerships that you have already developed, including with other funders like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, McKnight, some of the, and Canada. These are just some of the things that I have noted down. So what are the things to consider in terms of taking advantage of your comparative strengths and collaborating with others who can complement your strengths? So first of all, as you know, we have just funded the Innovation to Impact 2.0, which is our mechanism for really changing the way we're doing things so that we're focusing on the product life cycle to increase the success of products that are being developed from our research investments, and to increase the potential for scaling and commercialization. So, and I'm really happy to hear from Jim Gaffney that SMIL has already stepped up to be part of the cohort for the Innovation to Impact. And then we are also working with Seeds to Be, which is in Africa, to promote the commercialization of promising crop varieties from our innovation labs. And I know that we have passed on some information about the varieties that have been developed from SMIL, and they will really help us to look at the downstream stages of the product life cycle, from 5 to commercialization and increasing adoption. And then iReach is one that it's a research extension and advisory service coordination hub focused in West Africa. And I was very happy to hear from Inani's talk that you participated in showcasing technologies from SMIL and the technology part. So that's really great. And again, the CGIAR is something that I want to focus on, because they're now, especially in partnering with the CG on seed systems, while imparting your strengths on partnerships with NARS that could really support CIMMYT in this effort. And the last thing I would say is, I would like to encourage your team to communicate the results and impact that you are already producing. This has really been great for us. So Faith mentioned the Superman sorghum that the administrator Power really appreciated, and she highlighted why that is so important. The administrator is a writer, and she is also focused on humanitarian causes. And the fact that she showed interest in learning more about a product from research was really impressive. She came back and said, I want to learn more about this. Can you provide something for me to read about? So, and as you know, climate change is going to be, is a top priority in the new global food security research strategy. So I would really want to encourage you to send us your stories. I heard, some of your innovations on climate adaptation, like drought tolerance technologies. Please send us those stories. And so that's where I'm going to end with my feedback. And now I'm going to bring up my slides to talk about the global, just to give you a light touch on the global food security research strategy. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen, and I have also shared this with Ben in case I have technical difficulties. But do you guys see my slides? All
Yes,
right.
we see them perfectly.
Awesome. Okay. So we are working on the global food security research strategy. And first of all, I want to say that the Russia-Ukraine war really highlighted the importance of our work on food security because of the impending threat of shortage of grains and fertilizers. And Rob will talk more about this. So the global food security strategy has the overarching goal of reducing poverty and hunger by 20% over the next 5 years. And there are 3 interrelated critical areas that can be best addressed through research to achieve this goal. So one of those is climate change. So we'd like to work on climate adaptation and mitigation. So as you know, two-thirds of the world's poorest populations are concentrated in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, and they live in rural areas that depend on agriculture for food and their livelihood. And so climate change will hit the poor populations the hardest. So new research estimates that climate change will drive up to 132 million into extreme poverty by 2030 unless we do something about it. So technologies and improved practices that provide resilience to climate shocks will be critical. And at the same time, we need to keep mitigation of agricultural practices and the environment at top of our minds. So this is a longer conversation that the research strategy delves into deeply, but I won't cover here in the interest of time. Secondly is affordable and healthy diets. So the number of stunted children under 5 remains critically high. That's about 20%, and is a big contributor to poor countries' inability to get out of poverty. And it's predicted that decreased incomes and higher food prices due to climate change will lead to increased rates of child stunting, especially in rural areas. And last is to advance diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. So crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and increasing food insecurity, unfortunately, selectively disadvantage women, youth, and children. And so we have an opportunity in research to think about the different needs and preferences of different genders and age groups in varying contexts, and to ensure equal and equitable access to information, technologies, and services. So to address these 3 priorities, we have identified 3 research themes. The first is genetic improvement of crops and livestock, where we can take advantage of cutting-edge technologies to accelerate genetic gains in crops and livestock. The second is sustainable and efficient methods for climate-smart agriculture to achieve increased production without compromising environmental quality. And the last is nutrition and food systems. So the food systems lens is really to look at all the approaches involved in feeding a population, from growing, harvesting, processing, packaging, transporting, marketing, consumption, and so on. And it also includes inputs needed and outputs generated at each of these steps. And the COVID-19 pandemic has really exposed the systemic weaknesses and fragility of food systems, pointing to an urgent need for rigorous research on cost-effective strategies to ensure safe and nutritious food for all. So a food systems lens shows multiple entry points to advance nutrition outcomes through diversification of local farming systems, eliminating loss and waste, food loss and waste, and improving food safety and nutrition profiles of final products as just a few examples. Now, the new research strategy takes a holistic approach in all the research activities. So the challenges we're facing are interrelated and are complex and requires that we consider not only the biophysical research, but also the socioeconomic context and behavior of individuals and populations into consideration, as well as policies within countries. So this transdisciplinary approach is called convergence. The research strategy also places an emphasis on scaling and adoption of innovations from research, which you have already adapted. And so I won't talk much about this framework. But I would say that, as I mentioned earlier, the innovation to impact mechanism is one way we're implementing the product life cycle to support both AORs and our implementing partners in to plan product development from research and then taking a stage gate approach to move forward products that meet the demands of end users and have a potential to be scaled up and widely adapted. So understanding of what products are in the pipeline will be a tool for engaging with missions and to plan for which partners to bring together who are ready to take up technologies for scaling. And so this is where we, USAID, will work with our implementing partners to plan ahead when we see promising technologies that are about to get to the release phase, stage 6, so that there will be partners who can work with our implementing partners to scale and commercialize those technologies. The product life cycle is a great example of behavior science application because it thinks of the needs of the end user in mind from the very beginning and understands barriers to adoption of specific technologies and then creating a package of attributes that will meet those demands. Consideration of new activities to be funded in the future will consider applicants' plans for product profile development, stage gate advancement of products, and building networks with scaling partners. So my last slide is on the future of research in sorghum and millet for Feed the Future. Sorghum and millet have been identified as high priority crops for poverty and hunger reduction. And so we intend to continue investing in these crops. And the future competitions will emphasize a greater integration among the various activities and implementing partners that are working on sorghum and millet. So your lab is one of those, Innovation Lab for Crop Improvement, and then CIMMYT or 1CG is another. So we are also, so Tim Dalton, in one of his presentations to the research community of practice, admonish us to not squander the advances that have been made. And so we hear you, Tim. And just as SMIL has built upon the legacy of SMIL, we expect that the next innovation lab on sorghum and millet will build upon the legacy of this innovation lab and integrate ongoing activities in these crops while addressing the new priorities on climate change, adaptation and mitigation, nutrition and food systems, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And on that note, I'd like to close by thanking the SMIL team for all your hard work in advancing the goals of Feed the Future. And I especially want to acknowledge Tim Dalton's leadership for setting a vision of research that thinks of the smallholder farmer by emphasizing priority setting and focusing on strong partnerships with NARS. USAID appreciates your contributions, Tim, in measuring the impact of innovations from innovation labs and championing the importance of agriculture research for agriculture productivity in developing countries. So thank you, and I'd like to hand it over to Rob.
Thank you very much, Nora. That's wonderful, wonderful comments. We've taken plenty of notes and got plenty of things to follow up on. So Rob, I'll go ahead and let you get started.
Thanks very much, Tim. And these are some tough acts to follow this morning. I have to say at the outset that I have my background from last week still up, but I decided it wasn't all that inappropriate because we know after maize, sorghum is the next crop that the fall armyworm goes after. So it's relevant even this morning. It's wonderful to see this group gathered. And in particular, I want to flag two things. One is the people that personally I've worked with for 30 years and more that I see here, and it's great to see them. But at the other end of that very connected spectrum is to see this incredible set of presentations from our partners, from people who are, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet necessarily, although I hope I will soon, but to see that not continuity, evolution and growth that has occurred. I have to say I was both proud and humbled by what I heard this morning, and I expect that some others on the call may feel the same way. Proud to see what you all are doing, but humbled by the sheer excellence, and it sort of embodies so much of what we've been talking about for a long time, in particular, the role of the NARS in global agricultural research for development. And I'll say more about the CG transformation to one CGIAR later, but I can tell you that for many of us, wanting to make sure we get that right, that issue of where does the international system, how does that best mesh with what happens at the national and regional? That was the other point that came out in the presentations this morning, how strong the regional connections are as well. So getting that mesh right, but I feel like what we've heard this morning exemplifies the kind of the end game we should be looking for in terms of how the international research, multilateral research system connects with all the national and regional partners. So it's really just very, very gratifying. I want to start by also just, it was great to be reminded by Alemu right at the beginning that even in Ethiopia alone, we're talking about almost 5 million farm families growing sorghum. I mean, that's real scale, and it just underscores the importance of the crop. And then I think as people went on, what I saw was, and Nora alluded to this, but I want to pick up on it too, is the real food systems approach that's been adopted here. But it's been adopted in a way that's meaningful and has clear theories of change and impact pathways associated with it. A lot of times when we hear discussion of food systems, it's a very compelling concept and a very messy and complex construct. So the concept's great, construct much harder to figure out. But this morning's presentations, every one of the speakers talked about the role of farmers in defining what they were working towards, or the role of industry or economics, something that is really driving the demand for the improved technologies that are coming out of this. So these pathways and theories of change, and I was just so impressed, for example, you know, to hear about the links to the poultry feed industry at a time when we know that, you know, maize has its own set of vulnerabilities, and we want to see the demand for animal source foods is skyrocketing, and we want to see Africa's farmers be able to step up and meet that need in Africa for the poultry and egg industries to really thrive and make those foods more available and affordable, including to low-income consumers in both rural and urban areas. So thinking about, you know, quality, the digestible protein quality, these are the value traits, and these are what drives that growth in total factor productivity, right? This is the environmentally friendly growth that we need, where we are, by virtue of science, in partnership with agriculture and farmers and businesses and actors all along the value chains, really getting more for less. In other words, using with the same amount of water, sometimes even less fertilizer, if we have better soil management practices and such. That leads through to more availability and affordability and value assigned to the products that we're producing. So it was wonderful to hear about the poultry example, but also the fodder and the quality. I mean, we know if you go to West Africa now, and I expect it's true in East Africa too, the demand for livestock feed is so great. I mean, I was in Burkina, in Ouagadougou, about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was right before one of the Eids, and the entire city looked like a fodder market, right? I mean, it was just everywhere, and I thought, how much money is leaving this wealthy city and going out to producers in those rural areas where we know the problems of poverty and hunger and undernutrition are most concentrated. And so it's great to see that with a traditional grain crop like sorghum, we're thinking about the utility of all of its aspects. And we heard about varieties that are being developed for forage, for dual use, just great. And also the maturation of some traits that I remember from, gosh, decades ago, you know, stay green and such, to really see those reaching scale and making a difference. Same thing on the Striga side. I thought, wasn't it great to hear, I forget which speaker it was that said, well, one of the constraints is we don't have enough good places to test for Striga infestation. Maybe that's a great sign that, you know, the problem is less than it once was, and as much as that it's harder to find stressful environments to get those testing. Let's see, I also the discussion on seed systems, just really gratifying. We see so much what's been happening in very good ways to get us beyond a sort of a bipolar approach to seed systems, especially in the African context. One is hybrid maize, sort of standing out by itself, and the other is vegetable seed, often a lot of it imported, but a lot of gaps in the middle for other crops. So how gratifying to see that some of the partnerships between the public and the private sector, and when I say private sector here, I include farmers in that, to fill these gaps, to provide the foundation seed, to get to the multiplication of quality declared and certified seed, and to see the role of the public sector in monitoring and evaluating that quality and certifying it in a way that is aided and abetted by the private farmers who are doing first-class quality seed production on farm. And this is what we see around the world. So how gratifying to see this kind of sustainable, community-based, in many cases, seed systems that are transferring these new traits and value addition drivers in the breeding products to end users, and thus to the benefit of society as a whole. And of course, Nora mentioned Tim's great work on demonstrating the value of our investments in research. And I just want to remind us all that every time we see these successes of the kinds you all talked about this morning, we are building the constituency to keep this work going and to recognize its importance both in the near term, where we can talk about the value propositions that were being presented this morning, but also then turning towards some of the challenges going forward, and climate change, I think, being perhaps the greatest of those. I'll come back to that as well, but really great to see that. We also saw some references to gender, the importance of disaggregating information. We understand that women perhaps place more emphasis on quality traits, which makes sense if you're thinking about household utilization, than men who may focus more on agronomic traits. So being able to understand that, again, helps us really know, or not helps us, helps you all really know what your target farming communities and farming systems and agroecologies really are. And so just very, very gratifying. Maybe turning now to a little bit to the terrible and tragic events of the last 6 weeks or so with Ukraine. I want to first start by saying that in very early February, I think on the 2nd, there was a big article in the New York Times about global food prices. This was prior to the invasion of Ukraine, that we were already reaching record highs not seen for since 2008, with both fertilizer and food prices, and that this was almost like a vice grips for a lot of low-income countries who depend on both imported fertilizer and imported grain, and the vulnerable region in that analysis showed right across the Sahel, across to Ethiopia, because this is where the fertilizer imports are going. And then, of course, this has all been exacerbated by what's happened in Russia and Ukraine. Just to give you an example, I think I saw some evidence that in Lebanon, and essentially all the wheat's imported from Russia and Ukraine. Egypt, it's something over 70%. My point for mentioning those countries, which is outside the region where you work, is that we also know that bread and wheat is important in many other countries, even where it's imported. So what does this mean in the short term? Well, it means that it's going to be very expensive to get imported grain. And I think it steps up potentially the demand for sorghum to come in as a blending, greater percentage of blend in the flour. And of course, what this means is starting to have a homegrown solution that actually keeps the investment and the demand, focuses that consumer demand in ways that sub-Saharan Africa's own farmers can respond to it as a part of a response that includes better policy, not having shutdowns and embargoes on exports, and avoiding some of the mistakes we made back in 2008. But I do think that your community in sorghum and millet, as an alternative to the globally traded grains, where the trade is much higher, is going to be double underlined as we find our way forward in this very difficult situation that the world is going to be facing. And I think just yesterday's New York Times underscored again how serious the impacts of what's happening in Ukraine and Russia are to global food security and global nutrition security. So why is that? Well, what we know is that people, when grains become more expensive, people actually eat more of them because they can't. They shift away from quality foods in the diet, the fruits and vegetables, the eggs, the fish, and they shift more towards affordable basic cereals. And actually, we see that actually drives a negative outcome. So maintaining the affordability of staples is a critical aspect of maintaining diet quality for poor people, because it allows them to have more money to purchase quality food. So underscoring the productivity gains that we heard about today is really gratifying to see some of the yields approaching 3 and 4 tons per hectare. This is I think kind of the we've seen some big growth in maize and wheat, but now to see it coming into sorghum and millet and others, where these are the grains that can be grown and consumed in the region, it's very, very gratifying. So and then on the CGIAR side, alongside this shock, we've had a lot of changes going on in the CGIAR with the one CGIAR system. And some of you may have heard of something called Crops to End Hunger, which was basically an effort in response to SDG 2, Sustainable Development Goal 2. And it was really to try to upgrade the global crop improvement investments, many of which had atrophied as money, longer horizon money became harder, and more of the international agricultural research system was funded by bilateral projects with near-term outputs in mind. So this was trying to shift this back. It involved a lot of technical analyses, reviews by a team from the University of Queensland, and also economists, people like Doug Gollin and Keith Fugly and many others at IFPRI and elsewhere, who tried to do the analyses about the priorities. And what we found is that if we want to really emphasize poverty reduction and nutrition gains, we need to shift more emphasis into the crops of sub-Saharan Africa. And sorghum and millet was one of those, two of those crops. And so we see those crops being of increased importance in terms of that global investment. And this was co-sponsored by the USAID, the Gates Foundation, GIZ in Germany, and our DFID, now FCDO in the UK, our Australian colleagues at ACR, but all in partnership with the centers and importantly with the NARS. And what we heard this morning really exemplifies the kinds of relationships that we would like to see grow out of that, with the NARS really being in the lead. And it's really makes me proud to see the Innovation Lab partnerships really leading the way on what that looks like, to really walk the walk on what a really well-tuned and rationalized and modernized global breeding system looks like. And so maybe to end up my comments, well, just to say that this one CG has meant some changes, some difficult ones in some cases. We know ICRISAT has chosen not to join, and we've seen a shift of some of the responsibility of the system to CIMMYT and other partner institutions. And we're just feeling our way forward on that. But whatever happens there, it's keeping the NARS squarely in view. The critical capacities that you all bring and that the lab, the SMIL brings will be essential. So and I'm really glad Kevin Pixley who is leading some of this work from the CGIAR, has been on the call. And so finally, I think climate change is the big thing that lays ahead of us. And I see I've just about taken all the time, sorry. It lies ahead of us, and I think this is going to be the existential challenge. I mean, obviously we have this crisis right now. Climate change is indeed a driver of that, so is COVID. So we've got this kind of perfect storm situation, but as we look towards the climate challenge, being able to marshal the genetic resistance to heat and drought and the biotic pests that go with climate change is going to be critical. And I'm really glad to see Tim Lust and the US sorghum growers represented here, because I know they see a stake in what happens on the global sorghum stage for our own agricultural sorghum and millet industries here in the US. And I think climate change is going to be, as we've heard, the defining challenge of our time. And I guess I just want to encourage us all to continue to think together about this, but we can't lose sight of it, even in the midst of all of these short-term challenges and near-term challenges. They're really bound together. And I think our strategy, as Nora reflected, will really try to continue to make that case. Sorry to go on so long, Tim, but just big thanks to all of you. It's really been a pleasure to see all the great things that are happening in SMIL and through its partners at all levels. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Robin. You certainly didn't go on long enough. Your breadth and depth and the time that you've been addressing this problem throughout your career, everything you say is additive to what others are. You're not repeating, so it's really great to see it from a different perspective. I'm going to turn this to Faith. Faith had a great idea, and she's going to lead us through it about getting some feedback from some of the country programs. So Faith?
Thank you, Tim. I see that a couple of our USAID mission colleagues are present on the call from the field. And so I wanted to open this up in case my colleague from USAID Senegal, Abdoulaye Nadao, had any feedback that he'd like to provide on the presentations we've heard today. Abdoulaye, would you like to provide any comments?
Thank you, Faith. Let me just say a few words. We thank the spirit of collaboration and sharing that the SMIL program has always shown with the Senegal mission, and this allows us to see that your research objective fits perfectly into the priorities of the country, which is more important for us. And in no way this does not contact ongoing USAID programs. So especially since we are working on cereal, such millet, to particularly promote, for example, biofortified millet with our project. I think that varieties that adapt more and more to water scarcity, or that are more resistant to some disease, make it possible to better strengthen the resilience of cropping systems, and this will have a major impact on food security. So thank you once again for the annual session, which informs us, which let the mission know about your potential results. And I think we put together with our activities, get more involved in the adoption and maybe dissemination process. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdoulaye. So I think that's all of the mission colleagues who had suggested that they had some feedback that they wanted to share here. So I'll just summarize all of these really helpful feedback from my colleagues in saying that as the AOR for this activity, I'm committed to support each of you in kind of taking this guidance moving forward and figuring out how to implement it and integrate it into your programs. So I'm here as a partner for you as we consider how we leverage these strengths that were highlighted and how we address the upcoming challenges as we move forward. So thanks so much to all of you.
Thank you, Faith. We've got some time for some additional comments. I wanted to open it up first to the External Advisory Board for any comments, criticisms, ideas that you may have before we open it up to the broader audience for questions. So raise a hand or put it in the chat box. Peter, Barbara, Bahani, Bettina, you're the first up with the hand, so please go ahead. And then Peter.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And especially sincere thanks from my side to all the national teams and the partners for their commitment to work despite all the challenges we are facing, the global pandemic, the political unrest, especially also in Ethiopia, and the insecurity in Niger. Thank you really for your remarkable resilience. And I think that's something which we should not take for granted in this SMIL program. I really very much appreciated the demonstrated networking between North and South, between scientists and farmers, between the local knowledge and innovation and global knowledge and innovations. This is really great to see, and these aspects actually help to maximize the impacts of this program, the impacts in terms of breeding efficiency and better varieties, risk management through the seed balls, crop livestock integration, and the grain quality improvements with a clear linkage to local and global value chains, to nutrition and to income generation opportunities. And then, of course, also those tremendous impacts in terms of capacity strengthening, which I find so unique in the SMIL program. I don't know about any other program that has been so strong in capacity strengthening of young researchers, and I thank you for this. It was also really great to hear about the mentioned synergies with other projects and programs beyond SMIL that will further scale our impacts on the ground. And I also especially appreciated the progress using the digital platforms for monitoring and scaling and the envisaged business opportunity fair. Special thanks also to Nora for mentioning diversity, equity, and inclusion and access as core values that should always be integrated in our work. I think that's really important in the regions we work. In response to Robert, also many thanks for the richness in your comments. One aspect is I agree that climate variability and change is a big challenge, but in our regions, also the human population growth is a challenge. And there might be need to address this also, of course, not in this program, but maybe by USAID. And with this, well, especially to Senegal, I noticed the very good yield potential you mentioned for the varieties that are under dissemination. And here my specific question is, which can be addressed also later, is under what type of conditions has this yield potential been measured? How do these varieties perform on farm? What risk is associated with smallholder farmers growing these varieties? And related to this would then also be the question, to what extent are you fostering farmer experimentation with the new technologies that have been developed, as opposed to just showcasing them in a field day or in a contract farming constellation? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Bettina. So Jen Milt, you've got your agenda set up for you. You've got your list of questions to address later this week. And Bettina, I wanted to again reach out and say thank you to the McKnight Foundation. Please transmit that to them from us about the critical role that the McKnight program, with their focus on the downstream translation of the science that has been generated throughout the program. It's just been an exceptional experience. Peter, you had your hand up next. Would you like to go ahead, please?
Yeah, thank you. It's difficult to say anything now that doesn't repeat some of the comments already made by Nora and Rob and now Bettina. I must say that in the in the context of the COVID challenges and the insecurity in both Ethiopia and Niger, I had not expected, frankly, to see the progress that has been made over the past year. I'm not only encouraged, but extremely impressed with what Bettina called the resilience of the research program. I'm also extremely impressed with the strategic conceptual framework of the product life cycle and the very inclusive and holistic partnerships that have been formed to implement this conceptual framework. It's something that I know the External Advisory Committee has been talking to since the inception of this program 9 years ago. But to see it emerge in such concrete fashion and to see it actually being implemented is extremely encouraging. What I would like to have heard in the presentations at the country level, and hopefully we will see these in the project discussions in the next couple of days, is a better understanding of how the coordinators and PIs view as the major risks and challenges that they're facing going into the last year. I would really like to see what their plans are to navigate these risks, to overcome them. One additional point I'd like to make in terms of risk is that the goals that Nora set forward in the USAID strategy of trying to reduce food insecurity, child malnutrition by 20% over the next 5 years. What we've seen over the last several years is an increasing problem of malnutrition in major areas of Africa. And it hasn't been due to lack of progress on agricultural R&D, it's been due to conflict. And the areas where we see the most, the deepest child malnutrition are in conflict zones. And these conflict zones are spreading, not only in the Sahel, but in other regions of Africa. So I guess this is now becoming part of the context within which agricultural R&D is being implemented. And I'd like to get some sense of what additional points of resilience, both in production systems, in the types of production systems that tend to be more resilient, and in market systems and institutions are necessary for us to begin to focus on in a context of increasing conflict. I'm not trying to be pessimistic here, but I think we have to admit that this is a reality. It may be with us for another 5-10 years in some areas of Africa, and I think we need to be able to respond to it. To end on a more positive note, while the problems in Ukraine are widely understood to likely increase food prices globally, and food insecurity in most vulnerable areas of the world, including the parts of Africa that we're working in, I think we need to look at the increasing fertilizer prices and increasing grain prices as an opportunity. When you look back to the last time that we saw these similar trends in 07, 08, 09, 06, 07, 08, 09, this is when we had food price spikes. And it was also the period when we saw the most rapid and broadest extension of agricultural technologies in Africa. We certainly saw this in rice. when we were surpassing the pace of the Asian Green Revolution in terms of uptake of on-shelf technologies. Why? Because the incentives have been changed. We also saw it in sorghum and millet and certainly in maize. So I'd like us to sort of reframe, or at least add an additional frame to how we're looking at what's happening globally, to see this as an opportunity and to ensure that we will be prepared to respond to that opportunity and make major gains in terms of commercialization and uptake of the technologies being developed. But again, so let me just repeat how encouraged and impressed I was with the presentations on so many levels, including how they have been able to continue great progress in the face of some major challenges. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Thank you, Peter. Great points. Just to reinforce what you said on the last one, Linda Kelsey, who graduated from the SMIL program in agricultural economics, published a paper on the price shocks in Burkina Faso, the 2008-2010 shocks. Farmers benefited tremendously. And consumers did not lose as much as we had thought, because really the only price that was being transmitted internationally into Burkina Faso was that of maize. So millet, sorghum, groundnuts, they were locally, the prices were based upon local economies, and they didn't transmit the shocks to their populations. So excellent points about framing this as an opportunity. Dr. Brahani, we welcome your comments.
Well, thank you. I guess I will just repeat what my colleagues Bettina and Peter said, that in spite of the difficulties that we have had in the past year or so, that we've been able to really see so positive developments in all of our national programs is very encouraging. Further encouraging is really the participation of USAID so actively now, with Faith and Robert and Nora participating so actively and giving the SMIL such a support. And I was really gratified to see that they have really noted the positive developments in the program. You all know that this is the last year of the SMIL of this phase, and it is important to really look forward, what we are going to see maybe in the next few years. And based on the comments I've heard from USAID, their focus on global food security, sorghum and millet are going to be critical components of the USAID effort in general. I think this is very important. But in general, in all of that we have heard from the national programs, I just would like to maybe make comments on 3 items. Number one, I think over the years, over the 10 years this SMIL has been operating, we have seen end products come up in most of the national programs. And the end products I have seen, I think they can be summarized as maybe genetic products that have ended up varieties, hybrids in the different environments. And I think it is very encouraging to see that we have been able to see that kind of development even under very difficult circumstances. That is very important. But in addition to that, and I think one of the most important contributions of the SMIL to me is its contribution to institution building, strengthening the national programs. If it were not for programs like the SMIL or related programs, qualified people in the national programs will not stay there. the sustainability of national programs is really the retention of qualified staff. And this qualified staff have managed to stay because of the limited contributions of the SMIL. And I think I'm really gratified, that has been the scale. And this is, I think, very important. Although we have emphasized that contributions of the SMIL have been important to the national programs, there is one issue which we don't seem to highlight enough. I have raised this in the past and I want to raise it again. Although USAID is contributing to improvement of sorghum and millet in the national programs, and I think in this process, the US government, the US sorghum and millet system is, I think, benefiting tremendously from this involvement. And I just don't think we have really raised that issue enough. USAID has not raised it, the national programs have not raised it, but I don't think the USAID is really contributing to the national programs, just as a charity, but it is also gaining a lot at this time, and the number of contributions and gains which have come about from this involvement to the US national program is really so long. We can't really enumerate them all at this point, and many of us over the years have really witnessed what all these are, and they continue to really come forward. And I wish we would really emphasize that point, more, but we just don't seem to be doing that. We are saying that benefits to Senegal, to Niger, to Mali, to Ethiopia, but there is also lots and lots of benefits to USA, in this effort. But in general, I was so happy to have seen what has really taken place in the last year and beyond. And I hope there will be a continuation of the program of SMIL in the new vision of USAID in the future to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Brahani, for your comments. And again, you raise a point like others have, that there's so much that the program can talk about, and we're limited by time, and we pick our battles and focus on technology, while people and spilling benefits to the US and other linkages are not given probably the appropriate billing. Professor Stoker, I see your hand up. Would you like to offer some comments?
Surely. So I first would like to express my thanks to everyone for truly excellent presentations. It was really exciting to see these things. My colleagues have made so many comments that there's not so much left to say, but I was intrigued to see the involvement of Women's Food Processors Association in Senegal. I had the opportunity to work with women's food processors in Mali, and those women were a force. They were moving forward. And I think, we need to think about ways to involve them. Another comment, a number of years ago, a colleague of mine at Hawassa compared attitudes of men and women on a number of topics related to climate change. And to both of our surprise, women were more concerned than men, showed more concern on this questionnaire. I haven't looked at that data, it was published, but haven't looked at it for a while, but I thought of it in today's conversation. I was excited that nutrition and food systems were being emphasized as a research theme, as Nora mentioned, and Rob's comments about the importance of crops in Africa in managing poverty reduction and nutrition gains are so important, and I was excited to hear that. And I will pass on to other people because we have much to discuss.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for your comments and your points you raised. Any other comments from the EAB? Well, how about we open it up to, sorry?
I'll come back in, Tim, for just a minute.
Rob, please.
Really just wonderful discussion, but I really want to come back in particular to Peter's points because they both loom large. He made the point about conflict and then the one about the opportunity that's embedded in a crisis. And people know the old saying, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And I think, but let me start with the conflict. It's really a dilemma. Absolutely right, Peter, that starting in about 2016, 2017, the numbers started going the wrong way. A lot of it driven by conflict and terrible conflict. There has been a shift, a lot of investment in resilience. It's not always clear how agriculture can feature in those investments, depending on the nature of the conflict. But we do have some wonderful examples of, in Ethiopia, of the Productive Safety Nets program, for example, that made a big difference in what happened in the drought of 2016 versus what happened to the equally bad drought in the 80s. And of course, there's a lot of other changes as well with communication and infrastructure and such having improved. And the fact that the country as a whole has done so well in terms of agricultural productivity, I think made it easier to buffer this. I also think it underscores the importance of policy and trade in terms of building that resilience in that goes beyond a certain area to connect it more broadly to the other parts of the country, but also to the countries around it. And we've seen that. We've seen the importance of Ugandan maize being able to flow, say, north into Ethiopia when there's a drought there and such. So having, I think the overall food system is making gains. I think the one point where I might quibble a little bit is that the pervasiveness of malnutrition, if it's measured by child stunting, is still huge and enormous in non-conflict zones, maybe bigger probably just because of the sheer number of people that live in them. But so we have to keep both these challenges in view, and I think that's the challenge and the struggle. But clearly sorghum and millet, because of where they're grown, are a vital piece of that. And we've seen, I've got colleagues like Jennifer Karsner on the phone who was in Niger for years, now in Ethiopia, who have seen that and how being able to get those commodities right can really help build resilience. Because ultimately what builds resilience is people having more money and more assets. I mean, other things matter too, but having less poverty less extreme poverty can really help in terms of that resilience to shocks of all kinds. Finally, Peter made a great point, and Tim already welcomed it, but I just want to say it too. We've got to be able to step up as a community to address and meet the challenges that are putting before us. And this is something I've repeated to colleagues in the CGIAR meetings last week too. We've really got to, we can't be distracted. We've got to have solutions. We've got to have pathways, and the kinds of partnerships and the kinds of R&D and market linkages that we heard about today, I think really position us to do just that. But it's a really important point to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I put in the chat box any questions. Do we have any hands raised from the audience for quick questions or comments to add? Ludger, I see your hand up. Why don't you go right ahead?
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. There have been a lot of important points raised. And as you all know, I'm a soil scientist and I'm not a politician. And I'm not really sure whether I can express what I want to say in a political correct way. So when I heard about the future funding opportunities, I was a little bit scared, to be honest, hearing about climate smart agriculture. For sure, that's a very important point. But thinking as a soil scientist, what do I see in sub-Saharan Africa? And asking myself, what is the most important resource of a subsistence farmer? Then I have to answer soil. And we see a lot of soil degradation effects, but are these soil degradation effects really climate effects? And I say, no, it is not. Most of the degradation effects we see are actually due to the demographic factor. We always speak about the demographic factor because it's a neutral term, but actually we have demographic pressure. And this demographic pressure is leading to a land use change. And the land use change, in fact, is leading to a soil degradation. And that is our vicious circle. And now if we say in future, we look only on climate smart agriculture, then we are probably misleading and misinterpreting. So that's why I ask, do we not always also need a demography smart agriculture? I think that's very important to have that in mind. For example, if we take heat resistant variety, a heat resistant variety is climate smart in our sense, but it's not actually preventing from soil degradation. A second point I would like to raise is the one on the breeding. In some of the presentations, I've seen this potential yield of certain varieties. That's nice to know. Since ever, we know that new varieties have a high potential yield, but the question is, can actually these varieties also perform in the farmer's environment? So actually only speaking about potential yield is not enough. We need at the same time, we need an information about the risk factor. So is this variety also risk reducing? And we have to think about how we can express this risk reduction by varieties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ludger. Great provocative questions to get the week started. I couldn't agree with you more on the soils issue. Dr. Manzamaso Hojo has a paper coming out soon in which he looked at the cropping practices in Niger. And the only thing left to crop on in Niger is very marginal land. And so those frontiers have been exceeded and they shouldn't be cropped, but that's what's taking place. So great provocative questions for USAID to consider. What other questions, comments do we have from the audience? I am not seeing anything. It is right at 1600 GMT, 11 p.m. in Manhattan, Kansas, and even later in Ethiopia. I'd like to call this morning session extremely, extremely productive and thought-provoking and exciting, and call it to an end. What we have on the agenda is a couple of housekeeping presentations for the SMIL community. So what I'm going to suggest is that we take about a 15-minute break, and then we'll have some discussion on our communications initiative. So Nora, you're absolutely right. We put in a full court press on communications starting about 10 months ago, and I'm really happy to see that the products are being well received. And then we have some little financial accounting issues to discuss before we end today. Tomorrow, I'd just like to give you, and so if you're not part of the SMIL team, it's probably not so important. But I would like to invite everyone back tomorrow morning at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time, 1300 GMT, when we'll begin our presentations on Ethiopia, one on germplasm, one on food issues. So with that, everyone, thank you very much for a great morning. Let's just take a 15-minute break, reconvene here at 16:15 GMT, 11:15 here in the Central Daylight Time. Thank you, everyone. And is on the SMIL communication plan. So just as a little bit of a background, about 10 months ago, Nat and I were discussing what can we do different about our communications plan. And we got assistance from the Department of Agricultural Communications at Kansas State. And they had a number of different suggestions, one including working with a private sector provider. And so this has really taken off, and you can see how NORA and USAID in general really appreciated some of our efforts. So I'd like to turn the microphone over to Ben, who's going to put that in a much bigger context and give us some lead on where we're going with the communications program over the next year. Ben?
All right. Thanks, Dr. Dalton. I want to make sure everyone can hear me and see me, and I'm going to share my screen here with the presentation.
You're great.
Okay. All right. Hopefully you're able to see my screen. I don't know what that means. All right. So as Dr. Dalton said, one of our initiatives really, and one of our main endeavors is to communicate the success of the SMIL program over the past 8 years, and can communicate our current success and what we plan on for the future as well. So, I'm glad to be in this role to help with that endeavor. And so these are the three main areas that we want to focus on. And it was mentioned today, actually, several of these are mentioned today by several people. So I'm glad to hear that what we're doing is resonating with many out there. So we are building a global network supporting science and innovation. We are very focused on local capacity development, especially with youth development and women's empowerment. And we're co-creating and deploying appropriate technologies based on the exact needs really of the smallholder farmers. So like Dr. Dalton mentioned, this process started about 10 months ago, and we partner with a group called Martinez Media Marketing Group, and they've been a real help with our communications effort. And then also the Communications and Agricultural Education department through Kansas State University has been a very big help. And what we're trying to do is really trying to demonstrate the impact of SMIL for all the way back from 2013 to today and beyond. So we did travel domestically to the universities to see the PIs and the teams we work with at Texas A&M and Purdue and Colorado State and Fort Hays State in the fall, and really had good meetings there. We met online with Senegal, the teams in Senegal and Niger and Ethiopia, and have been communicating with groups in Haiti. What we need is the PIs and the teams support with photos, videos, interviews, and infographics. We're producing and getting a lot of information out on social media and through our website and various materials through papers that you produce. We're trying to get more information out about that, like Dr. Tesfai's paper on anthracnose and Dr. Morris's and Dr. Pressoir's paper on the Haiti sugarcane aphid. So we're doing our best to communicate the success, and especially the recent success of you, our teams. But we need your help with it. So if you ever have any photos or videos or interviews from your team or infographics, please share with me and just let me know. You can share that on PyStar or just send directly to me, or we can create a folder for you through Dropbox, and you can drop that in there. And we're also working on putting together a SMIL student and alumni group. We've had a great opportunity to train and educate mainly graduate students over the past 8.5 years, and are very excited about that opportunity. And we can see the results and the impact of those students today as they are in the field, in their professions, as they're teaching, as they're training and doing research in agriculture. So we're glad to see that, and we're continuing to do that. We've had close to 100 students come through our program. So we really are wanting to encourage that we help them stay together. We give them some kind of network that's sort of a kind of a fraternity or sorority of this sorghum and millet innovation lab that they can depend on, they can rely on. They can share about their success and their challenges with each other as they move forward with their own endeavors in their professional and personal lives. We are trying to do a quarterly newsletter. Matter of fact, we're trying to do a monthly newsletter. I'll share the link here at the end. You can get our, if you haven't, I think most of you have subscribed to our newsletter, but if you have any colleagues in your universities or in your offices that or your research labs who have any interest at all in millet and sorghum, please tell them to get on our website and get in our get subscribed to our newsletter. Also, it's very important that you put that number. You can see the number that's Google Scholar, where it says Google Scholar. That's our award number. So anytime you have a paper or a presentation or anything like that, that number written exactly how it's written right there on the screen should be at the end of your end or beginning somewhere under acknowledgements in your project, your presentation, or your paper. And so, yeah, so what we try to do with those quarterly newsletters or monthly newsletters is just give updates. And so if you get on, you can see we had a newsletter in September, and then we also had one in January and February. We're working on one in March, and we're going to focus on one project per newsletter. And it's going to be kind of a focus or a highlight. So be looking out. I'll be communicating with you about a month ahead to let you know, PIs and teams that will be interested in your project and what you're doing, your success. So we can really highlight and spotlight that every month. So, okay, and then we're also creating project brochures, and you'll see more of those through our website and as we communicate. If you haven't joined us on social media, please do. Those are the links to Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube. We need more subscribers on YouTube. That's really, really important. That also helps our what we call SEO. It's search engine optimization. So if people are looking around and are interested in the sorghum and millet community online, the more, I guess, traction that Google has or searches they have through YouTube and on their own search engine, the better it is for us as a whole community. But please join us on LinkedIn. I started the LinkedIn program or the account in August, and I think we're over 300, almost 390 followers right now. So it's really growing, and that's a great community, especially in the work world. And so you can get more information out about research and find out what's going on in your community for sorghum millet as well. And then Twitter, that's kind of serious and fun. So if you follow us on Twitter, please interact with us. But I'm happy to say that when I took over, we have nearly doubled the engagement and followers in our social media. So we're about 95% increase in our followers. So please also bookmark our website as well. We did update our website, so we're doing our best to continue to update that and put stories on there and new information about what's going on with you and your teams. And just a few places that you'll see more information about SMIL at RECA. I'll be going to SICNA, which is in Dallas, Texas, at the end of this week, actually. So if hopefully I'll see you there, especially those in the United States. Hopefully you'll be there if you're interested, if your research is about sorghum, and then also hopefully you'll have some posters there, maybe present. So I know I've talked to some of you about that, so I'm really happy to hear that. And then great to know, and this has already been mentioned, the Sorghum in the 21st Century Global Sorghum Conference is coming. It'll be June 5th through 9th in 2023 and in Montpellier, France. So that that is something we're really looking forward to. We're starting to advertise about that, so be on the lookout for more information about the Global Sorghum Conference. This is pretty important. I want to make sure that I am added, my email address is added to your contact list in the email account that you use. If you use Microsoft, if you click on my email address, you can just right click and put add to contacts. And that way, if an email message comes from me, you get it, and it shouldn't go to spam, and it shouldn't go to clutter, and it shouldn't go to junk. Same goes for all the email addresses you'll see on your screen right here. And so we'll be sending information through SMIL News. That's kind of the SMIL email address. So you can see I've got SMIL News at KSU and K-State, same with mine. So please make both of those a contact in your email account. And also with PyStar. I notice that a lot of times those PyStar email accounts that come directly from the PyStar system just go right to spam or right to clutter, right to junk. And we really depend on you getting that information so you know what kind of information we need to collect for reporting purposes for USAID and various stakeholders. So please make all those email addresses you see on your screen contacts in your email account, and that will help those email addresses not go to clutter, junk, or spam. So saying all that, please check your clutter, junk, or spam to see if you've received any emails from any of those email addresses. And if you have, move those email messages out, or say they're not junk or not spam, and move them out into your inbox so we can continue to communicate with you through those email addresses. All right, and then also right now we're open currently in the PyStar, the reporting system. So you should have received an email, I think, on from SMIL News, or sorry, from support at pystar.com on March 1st to open up for the semi-annual reporting. And so please look at that email and go to the instructions on that. You might check your clutter, junk, or spam to find out if that email message went there. But we're in that time right now where it's time to report on the semi-annual reporting. And while you're in there, update your contact information, upload some project photos and videos. And if you have any success stories that have happened, please, please, please let us know about your success stories so we can continue to broadcast your success worldwide. Okay, and then yeah, just a few things. These are just links. So if you go to my communications presentation that I just posted in the chat not too long ago, I posted several of our presentations there with direct links. So if it's not on our website, if the website didn't update already, you can go directly to that link and get the presentation. But anyway, these are just videos we put out there. We're trying to do more videos. So we're really, really proud of these videos. So if you get time, take a look at those, and please feel free to share these videos through your social media or your contacts or colleagues through email, whatever it takes to get more information out about us and what we're doing and you. And just more videos. So really proud of what's going on with the Marrera sorghum seed, and that's the article that Dr. Lapitan mentioned and Dr. Tar mentioned that we partner with Purdue to produce an article, and we also wrote our own article about that with Kansas State University, and so that came out in January, and then Dr. Morris and Dr. Persois and their team. There's a video there about the sugarcane aphid, the success of their team in Haiti. So take a look at those. And then also AGI SureTrack did some interviews with us. I know Nat Bascom did a great interview on food security and our role in that. And then also Etu and Fana. Etu is a current student with us in agricultural economics, and then Fana is a SMIL alumnus, and so both of those were talking about women's empowerment through agriculture in Africa. And so please check those out. And then also a new conversation with Dr. Dalton, Pushing New Frontiers. Okay, and if you have any questions for me, let me know. I'll stop sharing my screen right now, but there's our contact information. So I will go ahead and stop.
Peter, I see your hand up. Would you like to go ahead?
Good. I'll try to be very brief. I'm really, thank you very much, Ben. I'm really delighted that we brought on a private sector communication company to help us revisit what we're doing and to make it more focused and effective. Question I have is who are our priority audiences and what are intended outcomes of this communication strategy? And I did not hear in Ben's presentation, but I want to believe that one of the priority, if not the priority groups that we should be addressing are the government officials and the agricultural community in each of our partner countries. It seems to me that we should include in our communication strategy an effort to identify, recognize, and celebrate the impressive capacities and achievements of the national scientists that we're working with. And the products that they have developed. This could serve several purposes. It could help build support within our partner countries to provide greater funding and policy support to national agricultural systems. It could build confidence that, yes, we don't depend upon the Kansas states, the Purdue's and so forth to deliver our technologies. We have the capacities in country to do it. And third, it could accelerate the uptake of some of the technologies that are being developed. And what I'm thinking of is getting appropriately written and framed stories in national newspapers, on television, in the radio, and on the most frequently used social media platforms in each of the partner countries that would actually be tapped by what I'm suggesting should be our priority target set of target groups. Is that part of our current strategy? And would it take much effort to do a slight pivot to include that group? I'm thinking many of the stories that we're already developing for national circulation and within the upstream global sorghum and millet research and development community could be adapted and fed into national outlets. So it wouldn't necessarily take completely rewriting things. But let me stop there. Ben, is that part of our strategy?
Actually, yes. We do have a pretty detailed strategy. This wasn't really part of that. I'm glad to do a presentation really on our strategy. And I can even send that to you if you wish. And so everything you mentioned, we are already thinking about and we are doing. So we do need to really focus on what national, I guess, news sources, whether it be Science Magazine or Wall Street Journal or New York Times or whatever. But yeah, that's something that we're working with right now. Matter of fact, we're working with some people at Kansas State University to help us with the stepping through the right steps in order to get to the right people politically. And so it is definitely part of our strategy right now. And I do appreciate the comments, and you're right on with where we're going to go. I don't know, Tim, Dr. Dalton, do you have any comments about that?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Ben. So Peter, yeah, it's a really comprehensive strategy with multiple levels. And I think our first level is really trying to ensure that USAID continues to invest in sorghum and millet. And I think that resonates with them. And then how do you go about doing it with a lab? And not sort of promoting continuation of us per se, but just to ensure that there was continued investment in sorghum and millet research. Now, where we got going with the strategy and a couple of the early stories have exactly those elements that you talk about. So the Marrera release, some of those videos are interspersed with Amharic and Omo language clips produced by local news. And so we had that interaction, and that was very well focused in Ethiopia. We have stories coming up on the Seed Bowl. So I'd like to see Ben working with the team in Niger to get that story into those different newsprint, or whether they get onto TV. They're happy to put stories up. So I think probably the one thing which Ben hasn't had a chance to do, as we've been pushing along very fast in this and getting it up to speed, is to meet with the counterpart communications people in each of the countries, and not only take this information, but some of the infographics that we're pumping out, to be able to have them transmitted and used by our collaborators. We'd be more than happy to get extra mileage out there. So yes, it goes all different levels. You know, we focus on making sure that USAID mission representatives are hearing this so that they can advocate for us, as well as making sure that the national programs are being able to feature this information so that they get that recognition that they so deserve. So great comments, and a good couple places to follow up on, Ben.
Yep.
Any other questions for Ben? Okay, so please help out, and I think it'll pay off in the long run in multiple different dimensions. It's been really fun, and as you all heard, it's really well received. So I'm glad we did a lot of soul searching last summer into this and got up and moving with collecting information, video, and now we're being able to process it and push it forward. It's really rewarding. Okay, if there's no additional questions for Ben, no comments in the chat box, I'm going to move it to our last section, which is on SMIL finance. Kim is going to give us a little bit of overview and a few points on that. But I have to let everybody know that really excited for Kim in that she was promoted just recently. And she's moving up the food chain, the administrative food chain, to higher and better things. And not to be unexpected, Kim completed her MBA last year. And so I always knew it was only a matter of time before she got picked up by a more challenging and exciting position. So congratulations to her. We've already got a strategy in place to find somebody to fill in, and we actually will do an interview tomorrow afternoon. So hopefully that will be pretty seamless, somebody with experience, and we'll keep you posted on that. But Kim is really not moving too far away from us, just around the corner into another office. So we have her at our fingertips whenever we run into a wall. But with that, Kim, I'm going to turn it over to you. Congratulations, and we will certainly miss you.
Thank you very much. Let's see. I'm gonna make this really quick. So just a couple housekeeping items. Oh goodness. So we received a portion of our period 4 funds. And so we contracted with our international partners. So those have been fully executed, and I have sent 70% of their period 4 budget to them. With contracts and budget mods coming up, hopefully we'll receive the rest of our period 4 funding. So if you need to reallocate funds, please send your request and budget justifications to Nat and myself. We kind of have a 10% rule. So say you have, say $50,000 allocated for travel, and you need to use 4,000 of that, and you're not going to use the full 50, but you will need 4,000 for, say, a publication. Well, that falls under the 10% rule, so you don't need a mod for that. And also think about the excess travel funds, since I know COVID has affected a lot of our travel plans. So if you need to reallocate that money, or if you want to send it to your research partners in Africa, then we can put that into your new modification. For international travel, we have a request from Faith that travel be submitted 3 weeks prior to your travel start date in PyStar so that she can share news of our upcoming travel to the local mission and also to convey any guidance to travelers. And then as you know, our phase 2 ends July 21st, 2023. So all purchases need to be made by this date, and any purchases after this are not allowable. Very quick.
So thank you very much, Kim. That was always nice and reassuring that it is a quick and dirty financial update. We are now, approaching the end of March, and we still have not received our full funding from USAID for the fiscal year that began last October. And so we know this is a source of frustration, but I do have to say that USAID has been very, very good to our program and advancing money at the end of the previous fiscal year that we've been able to use in this forthcoming year. It's frustrating that we're not 100% funded at this point. The US government budget was just finalized a few weeks ago, so things will start moving very, very soon. But again, I think to emphasize what Kim says, you need to really think forward about how to spend your money out before the end of the program. It's a very strict US federal government law that no project can last longer than 10 years. And so there is no cost extension allowed in this phase. So think about any reallocations that you might need. And remember, if there's any thing that needs approval sooner rather than later, travels, as now that we're getting kind of restarted in doing some travel, it seems to me over the interim, there's been a lot of more forward advance notice has been required. So again, plan accordingly and keep us informed about your plan so that it can be translated to the appropriate channels at USAID and other authorities. Are there any questions for Kim on the financial aspects? I don't hear any, but again, all we have to do, it takes a little bit of work between Kim and then the new replacement and Nat as they formulate your revised, as they formulate your modification for this year. It's not a big deal. We just need to know what to do with the money and where to allocate it. And we can work it into the contract and get it moved through the system. And that's really all it takes. It's a pretty, it takes time to move things through the system, but it's not one that's an insurmountable hurdle. No
Tim,
questions
could I
on money.
just,
Nat?
Yeah, I just want to add to that, those modifications are pretty straightforward, but the sooner you can give us those budget reallocations, then we can get those worked up in preparation for when we do receive USAID funding. We can get those out to all the domestic institutions. As Kim said, we've been able to finance all the international institutions due to the extra support that USAID provided in the past pipeline. But I know we've had some good email communications with various PIs, and basically the message is just to pull that together in the next couple of weeks and send that to us, and then we'll get those ready. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nat. And again, we like to do it on an annual basis. If things come up, we like to adapt to them. So we can even do a mid-year modification. It just takes time to get it through the administrative channels here at Kansas State. Then we send it to your institution, and then it comes back, and then it gets processed. So it just takes time, but it is something that can be done. Any other questions? Well, that's all our program for today. We've structured this week's presentations to start in the morning in Manhattan, which is early afternoon in Senegal and West Africa, a little bit later in the afternoon in Ethiopia. So we're going to convene tomorrow at 1300 GMT. That's 8 o'clock here in Manhattan. And we will start off with presentations on Ethiopia. It'll be a 2 presentation day and discussion. So we should adjourn pretty quickly, and we've had to do a little bit of juggling of the program just because there's been some conflict. So we will do this Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as well. And that's what our plan will be for the rest of the week. So I look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow after lunch, for your tea, after your breakfast, and we'll engage in follow-up on much of what we discussed today. So thank you, everyone. And External Advisory Board, if you'd like to hang on for a little bit, we can discuss anything that observations that you have today. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
See you.
Bye-bye. Goodbye.